Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners went 11-1 in the regular season back in 2019 and 2018 and 2017. Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners finished the season 12-2 in 2019 and 2018 and 2017. Lincoln Riley and the 2019 Oklahoma Sooners made a trip to the playoffs last year in 2019 before losing in the first round. And in 2018. And in 2017, too. Today makes the second video in a row after doing Florida yesterday, where we're sort of focusing on a team who has been really good, but has a hump that they're trying to get over, right? In the case of Florida, yesterday, a couple of top 10 finishes in a row, a couple of New Year's Six bowl games and bowl wins in a row, right? But haven't been able to beat Georgia, haven't been able to win the SEC East or make the title game in Atlanta. Oklahoma, on the other hand, has managed to win the Big 12 several years in a row, making some playoffs, but they have lost in the first round each and every time they have made the playoffs. Can they take that next step in 2020? In today's video, we're going to take a look at the 2020 Oklahoma Sooners. Who'd they lose from last year? Who are they getting back? What about recruiting? New players. Spencer Rattler comes in, most likely going to be the guy taking over at quarterback. Can they get over the hump this year? Can they make a return trip to the playoffs and finally win a playoff game? We're going to find that out in today's video right now. Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. Really appreciate it also. And in addition to that as well, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Did you know that I post college football videos almost every single day of the year? It's true, I do. Subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up, share the videos. I set a goal for myself. I'm trying to get to 40,000 subscribers by the time the season starts. Now that's a lofty goal and a big expectation and not one that's gonna be easy to hit. But with you guys' help, I think if we don't hit it, we can at least come close. Pick out some of these preview videos that you really like that I'm doing over the next couple of months and share them somewhere. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. All that kind of stuff really helps me out a ton. I only do this once a year where I set sort of a goal where I want to try to hit a certain number of subscribers by a certain amount of time. I think I'm at 30,000 or around there now. I want to get to 40,000 by the start of the season. Help me out. The 2020 Oklahoma Sooners, this is the third preview video that I have done so far this week, and I got one more still to come. That's going to be North Carolina tomorrow. We knocked out Iowa State a few days ago, Florida yesterday, I think it was, Oklahoma today, North Carolina tomorrow. All of these previews and prediction videos that I'm doing are coming as suggestions from the folks over on my Patreon page. If you click the link down there in the description of the channel that says support the channel and join the Patreon page, it will take you over there. You can look around, go ahead and get yourself signed up. Help me out, help show some support for the channel. But all of the previews that I'm doing are directly suggestions from the folks over there on the Patreon page. So if you're already over there, you need to go over there, find the post that I made about these preview and prediction videos. Make sure you list the team that you want to see me do one of these preview and prediction videos on. I'm going to try to do 4 or 5 a week from now till the start of the season. All right, like we mentioned at the top, Oklahoma did go 11-1 in the regular season again last year. Marks the third year in a row for Lincoln Riley that they managed to achieve that record. And he's, of course, only been there 3 years. So every single year, Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, 11-1 in the regular season. Last year, losing to Kansas State in the regular season. 2018, they lost to Texas in the regular season. 2017, lost to Iowa State in the regular season. Won the Big 12 title game in each of those 3 years, made the playoffs in each of those 3 years, losing last year to LSU in round 1, 2018 to Alabama in round 1, and of course 2017, the amazing Rose Bowl game against Georgia that they lost there at the end. 3 straight trips to the playoffs, nothing to hold your head about, but college football is all about expectations, right? And the expectations for Oklahoma at this point are to start winning some of these playoff games. That's part of what we're going to do in today's video, is try to figure out, is this the year that they can make that happen? They haven't lost more than 2 games in a regular season since 2015, which was Bob Stoops, I believe, next to last year there. They went 8-5. Following year, 2016, they went, I think, 11-2 again, and then he sort of unexpectedly retired. Lincoln Riley, who was the OC there, took over, been there ever since, right? Right. How's Oklahoma recruited? Very well, especially within the Big 12. If you look at just the Big 12 rankings of recruiting, they're top 2 almost every single year as far back as you want to go. I'm going to take a look at the last 4 classes because the last 4 recruiting classes are going to be primarily what makes up this team's roster, this current Oklahoma team's roster. So you go back to the class that just ended 2020. They finished 11th nationally, the lowest national recruiting ranking they've had in the last 4 years, but still 11, nothing to be ashamed about. That was good enough for second in the Big 12. 2019, 6th nationally, so better overall, still second in the Big 12 though. 2018, 9th nationally, second in the Big 12 again. 2017, 8th nationally, and that was good enough for first in the Big 12 in that year. Now, of note here, the last 3 years I mentioned they finished second in the Big 12 in recruiting. The team that finished first each of those 3 years was Texas. So if you're looking for a team in the Big 12, talent-wise, that should be or is about to or whatever going to come close to challenging Oklahoma for Big 12 supremacy, right now, your money would have to be on Texas based purely on talent. They've had the best recruiting class in the Big 12 each of the last 3 seasons. Texas has. But again, Oklahoma at second there. You're really splitting hairs, and a lot of these things depend on, which sites you go by recruits and rankings. I use 24/7. I'm not trying to tell you they're the best. I just use 24/7 every single time so that I'm able to remain consistent. When you look within the numbers for Oklahoma's recruiting, it's no big surprise what you find. They load up on quarterbacks, wide receivers, skill position players, and they've done really well on the offensive line as well. Where they've struggled has been defensively, especially defensive line. They haven't really been able to get those dominant defensive linemen that you see a lot of the top tier SEC teams get, even and then in the ACC, a team like Clemson seems to get as many as they want. So they've definitely recruited better on the offensive side of the ball overall than they have the defensive side of the ball. And if you watched Oklahoma play over the last 3 or 4 years, that's probably not a surprise to you. Their offense year in and year out, one of the best in America. Their defense struggles to stop a nosebleed. It's just the different verse, same as the first for Oklahoma the last 2 or 3 years. They're going to run up and down the field and score 50 points. The only question is, can they give up less than 51? Most of the time they've been able to do that, but it has caught them when it's mattered most, in their case, the playoffs. So let's take a look at Oklahoma's offense for 2020. Who'd they lose? Who's coming back? What changes are we going to see? Well, of course, the biggest change is going to be a quarterback, right? Jalen Hurts gone. So not only are you starting someone new this year in 2020, it's the first time under Lincoln Riley that they'll be starting a quarterback with no experience, right? Go back to 2017, they had Baker Mayfield. He was a guy that bounced around a couple other schools, transferred to Oklahoma, played for a couple of years, won a Heisman. Year after that, 2018, Kyler Murray. Now, that was the first year really that he had played, another transfer situation, but he had been at OU for a year prior to that, so he knew the system. He comes in, he lights it up, wins the Heisman. Back-to-back Heisman winners in 17 and 18. 2019, Spencer Rattler's freshman year. Oklahoma brings in yet another transfer, this time Jalen Hurts. He comes in, has a pretty good year. I don't think it lived up numbers-wise, at least. Everyone knows Jalen Hurts, as good as he is, he's not Baker Mayfield and he's not Kyler Murray. With that being said, he still put up amazing numbers. Their offense was ridiculous again. He didn't win the Heisman, but he came runner-up. He was second place in the Heisman, right? So this will be the first year in a while at Oklahoma we've seen them play a quarterback that they actually recruited and signed out of high school. They've been going the transfer route a lot at Oklahoma, and it's paid off. Their offense has been absolutely insane. Most people agree it's going to be Spencer Rattler at QB for Oklahoma this year. They do have another highly rated guy, Tanner Mordecai. Spencer Rattler, much higher rated, though, than Tanner Mordecai. In fact, Spencer Rattler, highest rated quarterback Oklahoma has had out of all the ones we've talked about. So he was higher rated than Jalen Hurts. He was higher rated than Baker Mayfield. He was higher rated than Kyler Murray. I think most people are expecting him to get the nod there, but it will be interesting to see how Lincoln Riley handles this. First time with a quarterback really that's not a veteran, has really no meaningful college experience at all. We'll see how that goes this year for Oklahoma. What about wide receiver position? CeeDee Lamb, not replacing him. The best or one of the best wide receivers in all of college football, not just last year, but over the last 2 or 3 years. The guy was basically uncoverable at times. Has everything you want in a true wide receiver one. Speed, size, can jump, hands, can run routes, the whole package. CeeDee Lamb, first round draft pick. So he's gone. 102 yards per game last year and 14 touchdowns. That was more than, the 14 touchdowns was more touchdowns than the rest of the Oklahoma wide receivers had combined. Don't let that fool you. They're loaded at the wide receiver position. We mentioned with recruiting, they have no problem bringing in stud wide receivers. It is going to hurt him, I think, that injury to Jaden Hasselwood, a guy I've been a fan of for a long time. He played high school ball here in the state of Georgia where I'm from, so I followed him for a while. I wanted him. He was committed to Georgia for a while. Didn't go our way. He landed at Oklahoma. Sort of lost on the depth chart last year, not because he's not talented, because he's supremely talented. Most likely an NFL player, but like I said, Oklahoma had a ton of weapons last year, like they do every year. He did play and he played well. Didn't put up eye-popping numbers. That was expected to change this year, at least to me it was. But he had a knee injury back earlier in the spring, and it looks like he's most likely done for the year. Hope nothing but the best for him. Hope he comes back 100% the whole thing. Could hurt a little bit losing him, though, this year. You were sort of looking to him to provide some of that production you were going to be missing from CeeDee Lamb. So what do you have other than that? Well, you have Charleston Rambo, and he's no slouch either. Again, you could name the top 4 or 5 receivers on Oklahoma's team, and these are all guys that would probably start almost anywhere they played in Division I football. They're all really, really good. So to say they're not CeeDee Lamb is not an insult. They're still really good. You also brought in a transfer from UCLA, I believe it was, Theo Howard. So we'll see if he gets the waiver or whatever. I'm not even sure if he needs a waiver. It might have been a graduate train. Anyway, so you're trying to do what you can to try to fill in some pieces there with the loss of Hasselwood to injury, CeeDee Lamb to the NFL. I don't think anybody feels sorry for Oklahoma's wide receiver situation. You guys will be loaded. Now, running back, I'm a little bit more concerned about Oklahoma's running back situation than I am their wide receiver situation. Oklahoma has reminded me sort of an SEC team in the way that they treat their running back position over the last few years. Running back by committee, right? Even going by, I'm a Georgia fan, so you look at a team like Georgia, they're spitting out running backs like, Todd Gurley, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift. And these guys are only getting the ball 10, 12 times a game. Why? Well, we're playing 3, 4 running backs a game. We rotate them in and out. Oklahoma's been sort of that same way with their running backs. And losing Trey Sermon to transfer to Ohio State, I think hurts. Now, I do like Kennedy Brooks. Kennedy Brooks is great. He may even be better than Trey Sermon. I'm not trying to say he's not. The point is, Oklahoma has been running sort of a 2 running back system for a while with a lot of rotation, which keeps your running backs fresh into the year. So they're going to have to find somebody else to sort of backfill behind Kennedy Brooks this year because of the departure of Trey Sermon. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to put anybody in there that will give you what Trey Sermon gives you, but we're going to find out, right? Yeah, we will. Offensive line. Is offensive line the strongest part of Oklahoma's offense this year? It might be, especially if we don't figure out how to replace some of those wide receivers that you lost and you don't figure out something to replace Trey Sermon. But offensive line, you shouldn't have very many issues there. You have 4 returners starting off of a pretty good offensive line last year. Now, Oklahoma's offensive line wasn't as good last year as it was, I would say, the 2 years prior to that when they lost a lot of players to the NFL. But they'll benefit from that this year because they get 4 of those starters back. So continuity, experience, very important on the offensive line. As important, if not more, even than overall talent. The offensive line has to be able to play together. Getting back 4 of the starters there is a good step in the right direction offensive line-wise for offense. I could talk for an hour about Oklahoma's offense. If you pay any attention at all to college football, you already know. They're going to score 40, 50 points a game. They're going to run up and down the field. Spencer Rattler's going to have ridiculous numbers. Is there anybody that doubts that? I really don't think there is. At this point, Lincoln Riley has come the closest of anyone I've ever seen to developing a plug-and-play system on offense in terms of the quarterback position. 3 different years, 17, 18, 19. 3 different quarterbacks. 2 Heisman winners. 1 Heisman backup. 40-plus touchdowns. 4,000 yards. It's just been insane to watch the Oklahoma offense. I don't think anybody thinks it's fixing to fall off the face of the earth. Can they put up the same or similar numbers to what they did the last couple of years? Maybe not exactly the same, but it's going to be similar. It's going to be an explosive offense. Let's go to the defense because that's where all the questions are with Oklahoma. They've just had a pitiful defense the last 3 or 4 years. Last year was better. That doesn't make it good. Oklahoma was starting so far down defensively. Any improvement at all was good, but it was going to take a whole lot of improvement to make the defense good. They did show some signs last year of being better. Of course, they changed defensive coordinators. Alex Grinch took over last year as DC, his first year. I do think they played a little bit better last year than what I've seen them play the few years prior. Still, nowhere near an elite level defense. The talent is not there. It's just they still have a ways to go defensively in my mind. Now, I can rattle off a million stats to try to prove this point one way or the other. In a lot of stats, Oklahoma's defense was much better in 2019 than it was a couple of years prior to that. There are some that weren't very good, though. One of them was takeaways. 120th, did I write it? 121st nationally in takeaways. Got to find a way to create more turnovers. Big losses on the defense for Oklahoma, too. Not that they were great or loaded at every spot on the defense to start with, but two of the best players they have, the guy in the middle, Kenneth Murray, linebacker, a million tackles. It seemed like he was all over the field. Definitely the best player you had. He's gone to the NFL, first-round pick. And then I think your best cover guy, your best defensive back, Parnell Motley, he's gone. So you've got to replace two of the best players you had on a defense that really wasn't all that good to start with last year. I get that there's reason to be excited defensively in Oklahoma. Grinch does appear to be a better option than what you had before with Stoops. I just still have a ton of questions about the actual level of play we're going to see from Oklahoma's defense this year, or really any year until I'm proven wrong. As high as I am on the offense, and I say, listen, I keep seeing this over and over with the offense, I've got no questions. I'm saying the same thing about the defense. I keep seeing the defense over and over again give up 40, 50 points in these games, 1,000,000 yards, and it just hasn't, until I'm proved wrong, it's hard to expect that not to happen. Again, the defense did look better at times last year than what we've seen. But look at the national title game. And yes, I know it was LSU, and I know LSU moved up and down the field on almost everybody they played last year, and Joe Burrow put up ridiculous numbers. Watch the first half of the LSU-Oklahoma game. LSU could have had 1,000 yards in the first half of that game. Oklahoma just had zero answer. I mean, you ended up giving up, 700 yards and 63 points. And LSU gave up early in the third quarter of that game. It just became clear defensively it was just a mile away. It was not good. But again, they scorched a lot of people. So hard to judge just on that. But again, even though 700 yards and 63 points, it could have been 1,000 yards and 80 points easily. It was that bad. Really, really bad. Lose Kenneth Murray. I talked about that. You lose Parnell Motley. You got to find a way to make that up. You got a guy coming back at linebacker from injury. I'll get to him in a minute. You better hope he shows up because you're going to need help there losing Kenneth Murray. Good news defensively, you return 9 starters. So you bring a new defensive coordinator in last year, Alex Grinch, right? So you're assuming new terminology, new schemes, new packages, new formations, big learning curve, right? Well, you keep Alex Grinch this year, and 9 of those guys who were kind of learning on the job last year under Alex Grinch are now back. That's a positive sign for 2020. 9 starters back is great, but again, how talented are they? That's going to be the question and the issue. Healthy linebacker Caleb Kelly missed I believe he missed the first 10 games last year. Is that right? An Oklahoma fan will tell me if I'm wrong. You get him back this year, he's going to have to try to make up some of that production you're missing from Kenneth Murray. I don't think he's a Kenneth Murray, but maybe he can help you come close. I don't know. We'll see. Ronnie Perkins suspended for failed drug test heading into the playoffs last year. His status kind of up in the air. I don't expect him to play this year. If you go back and look at Clemson from the year before, similar story. They had some players fail a drug test heading into the playoffs 2 seasons ago. Those players were not eligible to play for the playoffs or the entire next season. Could be looking at a similar situation here for Ronnie Perkins. Something to keep an eye on. So defensively, you got some young guys. Yeah, you got some transfers. You got 9 starters returning. Alex Grinch is back in his second year. You would have to assume some improvement there defensively if, and this is a big if, you're able to make up what you're losing by not having Kenneth Murray. And I think your best cover guy from last year, Parnell Motley, we'll find out. All right, time to put the schedule up on the screen and see what Oklahoma can do in 2020. So you guys know the routine. We're going to go through it game by game and give you a winner and a loser for each one. Try to tell you what I think about it. You start out at home with 2 home games before a bye week, 2 non-con games. You host Missouri State. Win. This will be Spencer Rattler coming out party, right? Oklahoma will score as many points and have as many yards offensively in this game as they want to. Missouri State cannot keep up with Oklahoma. There is no way. No, and nothing you see from Oklahoma defensively in this game either will mean anything. Missouri State is just severely outmatched in this game. That combined with the fact that Oklahoma has to play an SEC team the following week, I don't think Oklahoma's going to come out and show everything they have against Murray State. Why would they? There's really no reason to. They're going to beat Murray State as bad as they want to. Key for that game, get out of there with no injuries, but that's an easy win. And then, of course, one of the biggest non-con games of the season, I think, even though Tennessee has been down lately, this is a big game. Tennessee goes on the road, plays you at your house in Norman. Now, Tennessee is a team that has struggled for a long time in the SEC. That's very well documented everywhere you look, especially on this channel. More than that. But they did end the season hot last year. It is the offseason, and that means all the Tennessee fans are all excited again. This is the year, yet again, that they're going to take 2-3 steps forward. They're going to compete for the East. They're going to beat Georgia, Bama, or Florida, or all 3. And yes, even you, Oklahoma, they're saying that too. They've got some reason to be excited. Like I mentioned, Jeremy Pruitt, it couldn't have started off any worse for Jeremy Pruitt last year with those losses to Georgia State and BYU. But they did end on, a 5-6 game winning streak, making a bowl game, beating Indiana. So there's reason to be optimistic. They got Garantano coming back at QB. They got a freshman in Harrison Bailey that they're excited about. Anyway, this isn't a Tennessee video, but the point is, as bad and as down as Tennessee has been in this game, I'm just, I'm warning you Oklahoma fans now. They do think they have a chance to win this game. They're not trolling. It's not just the offseason beating their chest thing. There's 4 games that Tennessee fans are looking at on their schedule where mostly people are giving them no chance, starting with your game, the Oklahoma game. But you got the Oklahoma game, you got the Florida game, you got the Alabama game, and you got the Georgia game. So, again, for Tennessee, we're talking here. Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. They really, really, really want to win one of those games. I can't tell you how bad they want it to happen. Don't let it be you. I don't think it will be. It's at home. It's in Norman. It's early in the season. Injuries shouldn't be an issue on either team here. Both teams should be at or near full strength here. They're just nowhere near as talented as you. Defensively, maybe, but they don't have the offense to be able to take advantage of your weaknesses defensively. Are you going to shut Tennessee out? No, they're going to score some points. They're going to move the ball. They're going to put some points on the board, clearly. You're going to put a lot more. I think you do get the win at home against SEC East team Tennessee. And that takes you into your bye week, and I have 2 conflicting observations about this bye week here, week 3, or what would be week 3. First, this is way too early in the season for a bye week. You play 12 games. You want to get your bye week as close to the middle of the schedule in theory as you can. Play a few games, 5 or 6, take a week off, let your guys rest up, heal, make any adjustments, changes, whatever. Then you play your last 5 or 6 games. That's ideal. But you're playing Army after your bye week on the road too, and also at Army. And look, again, yeah, you're way better than Army. What happened last time you played them? Playing these triple option teams, when you don't play triple option teams ever, is not easy to do. It's not easy to do. In Army, what do we know about it? They're going to be very disciplined. They're not going to make any mistakes. They're going to chew time off the clock. They're going to limit Oklahoma's possessions. They're going to play smart defense. They're going to try to stop you from making big plays. They're going to try to stop you from hitting the home runs, right? When you do score, when you do get the ball offensively, they're going to want to make you march down the field as opposed to hitting the big deep ball or something like that. They're going to try to slow the game down. This is their MO. They've been successful at it at times, including against you the last time you played. I think you did pull out the win. Was that the overtime game? In any case, the point is, it's very tricky to play these triple option teams when you're not used to playing them week in and week out. You do get a bye week before that. That's a huge deal. It takes time, more than 1 week, to prepare to play the triple option. And we see this year in and year out in college football. These teams, these highly ranked teams struggle with these lower class lower classification schools that run the triple option. So in that regard, I think the bye week comes in a good time. I don't think they're going to catch you sleeping. I think you get the win. The bye week helps you. You're 3-0. Then you come back home and you start your Big 12 schedule. Of course, Big 12, they all play 3 non-con games, so you get your 3 out of the way first. Now, since you already had your bye week, that means you play 9 straight conference games without a bye week. And it starts for you at home against Baylor. Sort of an out-of-nowhere story from last year, right? They ended up making a New Year's Six Bowl. You played them twice last year, beating them in the Big 12 title game, sending them to the Sugar Bowl to take their beating from Georgia like they were supposed to. But their entire coaching staff is gone. I expect Baylor to take a step or 2 back this year. You beat them last year. I don't think they're going to be even as good as they were last year. I think you get them again at home. You're still undefeated. Now, here comes the Texas game, and this is tough for me because I'm no Texas fan. I don't think Texas is back or anything like that, like going 12-0. I don't think Texas is well, I guess they have a possibility. I wouldn't put my money on it right now for Texas to win the Big 12. I refuse to believe Texas is as bad as they looked last year, though. I honestly do. I don't buy into the injury excuse 100% of the time, depending on the situation, but Texas was absolutely ravaged by injuries last year. If you look at Texas play LSU week 2, and then you look at Texas play its last 4 or 5 games, it's just not the same team. It's just not. I'm not a Tom Herman fan, and I'm not particularly a Sam Ehlinger fan either. But he's back. You have to assume he's going to have a season closer to what he had in 2018 versus what he had last year. I mean, at one point last year, didn't they have like a linebacker playing running back or something? I mean, they had like no scholarship running backs on their roster because of injury and transfers. It was just a bad scene in Texas last year. We looked at the recruiting. Talent-wise, top to bottom, there's not much difference between these 2 rosters for Texas and Oklahoma. You've had their number the majority of the time lately. No one would deny or doubt that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you beat them again this year. I'm giving the win to Texas this year, though. I think they catch you here. I think it's just sort of their turn. I don't think Texas is quote-unquote back and going 15-0 and winning the national title and all. I'm not buying into that at all. I'm done with Texas and Michigan hype until I see them do something. Call it a feeling. Call it whatever you want. I do think you'll be favored in that game. This obviously will be an upset. Upsets happen all the time. Every loss you've had in the regular season over the last 3 years has been an upset. You've been favored in every game you've lost, right? You were favored against Kansas State last year, they beat you. You were favored against Texas 2 years ago, they beat you. You were favored against Iowa State 3 years ago, they beat you. You're going to be favored against Texas this year in the Red River Shootout. They're going to beat you. Then you got to go on the road and play Iowa State, and guess what? No one can win there because Alphabet Young said so. Yeah, can't win on the road at Iowa State. It's impossible. Gee, I don't understand where this myth started. You know, it's almost to the point now where it's not even funny making fun of it on this channel anymore. It became a long-running joke on here. No, it is not impossible to win on the road at Iowa State. I don't understand how this myth came about. Just look at the record. Iowa State loses at home literally every single year, multiple times. Is Iowa State a good team? Yes. Are they great? No. What's Matt Campbell doing there? I have no clue. The dude should have got out when the iron was hot 2 seasons ago, but for some reason he's still there. I still expect him to get out of there at some point in the not too distant future and take a real job. And I'm not disrespecting Iowa State. Iowa State is a good team. Look at where they recruit versus Oklahoma. The fact they can even compete with an Oklahoma is amazing. But this idea that you can't win there is just potato in its face, and you're going to prove that this year when you go up there and mollywop them. Now, why is this game moved up here to the middle of the season? You host Oklahoma State, the Bedlam game. Isn't this supposed to be played on Thanksgiving? What are you doing, Big 12 or Oklahoma State? Quit messing with the Thanksgiving. Is there a better weekend of sports than Thanksgiving? I mean, you got games that start on Wednesday of that week. Then you got Thanksgiving games, Friday games, Saturday games. There's usually even a Sunday game or two. And and it's all rivalry games. Why is this game moved to here? You know, the Big 12 is one of the dumbest conferences in general in America. I'm dead serious. I am 100% serious. They're called the Big 12. They only have 10 teams. A few seasons ago, they say, we're not having a conference championship game anymore. Conference championship games are meaningless. We're the only conference that does it the right way. We're going to have 10 teams, and all 10 teams are going to play all other 9 teams within the conference. We're going to be the only team, the only conference in America whose teams play every other team in their conference. So whoever we crown as the champion is the one true champion. You remember that? We don't need a conference championship game. And then what happened? They kept missing the playoffs every single year. Why? No conference championship game. Yeah, so then they come out 3 years later and say, well, we still think we were right way back when, but now we're going to have a conference championship game. But here's what else we're going to do. We're going to take our biggest game of the week, every single week, and we're going to play it at noon on Fox Sports. No one's watching. They're just not. At noon? Stop. Put the game at 3:30 or put it prime time. The Big 12, it almost seems like the Big 12 is intentionally trying to disband. I mean, they almost went away 4 or 5 years ago anyway. It's sort of a modern day miracle that the Big 12 as a conference even still exists anyway, but they do. But then every decision they make, though, it seems like it's geared toward what? Okay, here, we have a decision to make. We have 2 choices. Which of the 2 choices will lead us closer down the path of this entire conference just getting disbanded? And then that's the decision you make. Playing your best games at noon? No! And now you got one of your biggest games of the year, an in-state rivalry game. And you don't have many in-state rivalries within the Big 12 outside of the state of Texas. Let's just be real. You don't. But you've got Oklahoma State every year. And what do? Instead of playing that game at Thanksgiving like you're supposed to, you're subjecting us to this sometime in October or whatever the hell this is. And yeah, it's going to be at noon. Oh, and by the way, they're going to beat you too. Yeah, you're losing to Oklahoma State. Sorry. Then you go on the road and play at TCU. Win. I done got irritated now. TCU, what can I say about TCU that I don't say every single year? I like Gary Patterson. At least he attempts to play defense every single year. Not very many head coaches in the Big 12 can say that, but Gary Patterson can. The guy's been there since Jimmy originally cracked corn. Very consistent. Not hardly ever an elite team, hardly ever a terrible team. Most likely going to be the case again this year. You do have to play them there. I'm not trying to say this is the easiest game on your schedule by any means, but I have you winning on the road at TCU, back-to-back road games, because you go the next week, the longest trip you could possibly take within the Big 12 to West, by God, Virginia. God's country. You get a win there. They're another year or two away, I think, from getting back to being able to compete with any type of top 10 or 15 teams. They just lost way too much talent a couple of years ago with that coaching staff change. I do like the coaches they have there, and I think there's some potential there to turn West Virginia into a 10-plus win team within the Big 12, but not last year and not this year. Keep an eye on their recruiting, but they're at least 1 year away. And then you finish things up with 2 home games and an away game. Kansas State at home, Kansas at home, at Texas Tech. I do like Kansas State. Kansas State is a team, though, that I think I'm in love more with their coaching staff right now than I am their players. Not that they don't have any good players, because they do, but I really like their coaches, and that may be inflating my opinion of Kansas State in terms of what their record could be this year. I've got to do some more looking into Kansas State. I think you're going to get that win there. This is another one, though, that I don't think is a gimme or a guarantee. Don't forget, they're the ones that beat you last year when that coaching staff was there, and that was their first year there. So not a pushover. And if you're mad at me about the Texas or the Oklahoma State game, fine. Give yourself a win there. But then I'm going to need you to go ahead and mark this one down as a loss if that's what you do. But I've got you beating Kansas State and getting the win. Kansas... win. Outside of watching Les Miles eat grass, what are we doing? Not much there at Kansas. They're another team that's a couple of years away because of some scholarship issues that the previous administration straddled them with. You finish things up on the road at Texas Tech, flip a coin. What is Texas Tech going to be? I don't know. They go out 1 week, score 50 points, but give up 54. They go out next week, beat a team 35-2. It's just the weirdest thing. They're not beating you, though. You're going to beat them. There you go. 10-2 instead of 11-1. I've got you taking a step back, Oklahoma, in 2020. Now, the good news is 10-2, most likely, is still going to get you into the Big 12 title game. Question is going to be, if you then win the Big 12 title game, is 11-2 going to get you into the playoffs? That would be tricky. If it's tricky for any no two-loss team is guaranteed, right? Except maybe an SEC, a two-loss SEC champion, but maybe not even in that case. So no two-loss team is guaranteed to get in, right? It's going to continue. It's going to depend on the records of what the other teams at or near the top of the poll, what their record is, right? But if there's a team that's in most danger, I think, of having 2 losses and not getting in, it's Oklahoma because of track record. I do think fatigue is setting in with Oklahoma. I think if Oklahoma finishes as a 2-loss Big 12 champion, which would what would have to happen under my scenario here if you lose 2 regular season games, if they finish as a 2-loss Big 12 champion, it's going to have to be completely undeniable that they're one of the best 4 teams before that committee will put them in. Because they have put them in the last couple of years when some people thought maybe they didn't deserve it, and Oklahoma has gone out and gotten absolutely destroyed. That's going to catch up with them at some point. I could be wrong about the schedule. Listen, you'll be you could go 12-0. I mean, come on, what do you want me to do? Hit record and say, well, Oklahoma, pretty good team, probably going 12-0. No, I watched that. 11-1, 3 straight years in a row. 11-1 is probably the most likely record for 2020. I've got you at 10-2. You could also go 12-0. I do think you'll be back in the Big 12 title game fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the year. And that's all that actually matters in the end. So try not to get too mad about anything Uncle Lou goes ahead and educates you about here today. All right, guys, I really appreciate you watching. I'll be back tomorrow with a North Carolina version of this video. But until then, though, have a good morning.